Hi, welcome to Voting Rights in Long-Term Care. I'm Jennifer Levin, a senior attorney with Disability Law Colorado, and I'm going to walk you through our presentation on voting rights in long-term care facilities. Our agenda today is going to consist of an explanation of what Disability Law Colorado is and what we do. I'm going to talk a little bit about the VOTE program at Disability Law Colorado, and then the voting rights issues in long-term care residential facilities that we have been addressing for the past several years. One of which is signature matching, and the other is the capacity to vote. I also want to talk a little bit about our collaboration efforts with Colorado's Ethics Committees on Aging and our I Vote To project. Disability Law Colorado is Colorado's protection and advocacy organization. We do investigations into allegations of abuse and neglect throughout the state in state-run facilities that serve people with disabilities. We do individual advocacy involving complaints alleging civil rights violations based on disability discrimination. We take legislative action on issues that impact the lives of people with disabilities. We also conduct outreach and trainings throughout the state. We do systemic impact work through all of these actions, from the individual advocacy, our investigations and legislation and outreach and trainings. And we do monitoring of facilities that serve people with disabilities. If we have an allegation of abuse and neglect in a facility, we can go and monitor that situation using our access authority under our federally mandated authority to do so. So the two voting rights issues that I want to discuss today are signature matching and mental capacity. These are the two primary issues that we see in long-term care facilities. And because we were consistently receiving complaints around these two issues, we decided to do a push of messaging into the community so that people who work with people in long-term care facilities could start addressing the problem and preventing it from happening. Let's talk about the signature matching issue first. In Colorado, the way we identify a voter is by their signature on their ballot. And does it match the signature in Colorado's election database? We have been seeing a lot of signature rejection coming out of long-term care facilities. And this is most likely due to the aging process and possibly disabilities that people acquire as they age. So it's not surprising that we see signature rejection coming out of a long-term care community. But what we would like to do is try to prevent that from happening. And there are several ways we can do that. If you feel your signature has changed significantly over time since the last time you registered to vote, you can update your signature by simply filling out another registration form and turning it into your clerk's office. If you cannot sign a ballot or you aren't able to use your hands to form words, then you can always use a mark. You can mark the ballot with an X or a line and have someone witness that mark for you, and then that won't go through a signature matching process. You can also use a stamp. So if you have a stamp with your that looks like your signature, you would use that in the state database. And then once you get your ballot, you use the stamp on your ballot, and then the match will happen. Your signature will match what's in the database. Now, if your signature does get rejected after going through the process between the bipartisan judges, where they're looking at signatures to see if they match and determine if there is a match or if there isn't. If they determine there isn't a match, you will be mailed a cure card from your clerk. The cure card is the way you can attest to the clerk that this is your signature, and it needs to be turned back into the clerk within 7 days of election day in order for your ballot to be counted. One of the issues we are hearing about from long-term care facility residents is they never got a cure card. So we want to make sure that if you're working with residents, keep an eye out for cure cards because they are important. They should be given to the resident so that they can fill it out and be a part of that process so that their ballot gets counted. The second issue I wanted to talk about is the capacity to vote. So in Colorado, there are no restrictions to the right to vote based on capacity. And when I say capacity, I mean mental capacity. Some examples of mental capacity issues would be amongst residents in long-term care facilities who have dementia or Alzheimer's disease. These can create some issues with capacity. So if a person has any of these issues going on, unless a judge has court ordered that person not to be able to vote, the person still maintains their right to vote. As long as they are an eligible voter, they still have the right to vote. And if they can demonstrate the intent to vote and they can direct their preference for their vote on a ballot, then that person should be able to cast a ballot. A person assisting someone in voting cannot vote for them. So if it's at that point where the person can't articulate their intent or preference, the provider or caretaker or assistant should not vote for that person. In Colorado, a guardian does not have the right to disenfranchise a voter, nor does a family member, and nor does a person who works in a residential or long-term care facility. A presumption that a person cannot vote due to disability is discrimination. If a person with a disability needs assistance to vote, that person has the right to assistance from any person that they choose except for a union representative or employer. So if a person asks the staff person in the long-term care facility to help them vote, they can help them vote. If a person asks a family member to help them, that family member can help them. If a person asks an election worker to help them, the election worker can help them. The person assisting does not have to be a registered voter and does not go through the process that a voter would go through in order to assist. The only way to take away a person's right to vote in Colorado, and I've mentioned this before, is that a court order must be issued that would specifically state that a person no longer has the right to vote. For the past several years, Disability Law Colorado has been working with Dr. Fred Feinsod in his ethics committees on aging. We've worked together on the Long-Term Care Community Ethics Committee at Vivage in Lakewood, Colorado, and the El Paso and Teller County Community Ethics Committee in Colorado Springs. This brings me to the I Vote Too campaign. This campaign is a collaborative effort with Disability Law Colorado and the Community Ethics Committees. We wanted to ensure a full inclusion of voters with disabilities in long-term care facilities and the election process. And by doing so, we have created virtual trainings throughout the state. We have created long-term care fact sheets that are available upon request, and We have hundreds of I Vote You buttons that residents and those who work with residents and who care for residents are able to wear during the elections, so to show their support and to show that they participated. All of this information is available to anyone throughout the state, free of charge upon request. So please, if anyone is interested, feel free to give me a call. That brings me to the end of the slideshow. Thank you so much for listening and watching. If you would like to contact me for further questions or the materials that I mentioned, please feel free to call me 303-722-0300 or email me at jlevin@disabilitylaco.org. Thank you again, and go vote.